We want to take you now to Boise, Idaho, where a verdict has been reached in Lori Vallow Daybell's trial. The Idaho mother is accused of killing her 2 youngest children.
She's also charged in connection to the death of her husband's first wife. We're going to listen in for the verdict.
Yes, Your Honor.
Will the defense will stipulate?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, at this time, the court will inquire then from the jury. Has the jury reached a verdict?
Yeah.
Very well. If you have the verdict form, I'd ask the bailiff bring that over here and we'll have it brought to the clerk to be read. All right, the court has reviewed the verdict form, find that it's been properly completed, signed and dated. So at this time, I'll direct the clerk to please read the verdict into the record. The defendant would please rise.
In the District Court of the 7th Judicial District of the State of Idaho, in and for the County of Fremont, State of Idaho plaintiff versus Lori Vallow, aka Lori Daybell, defendant, case number CR 22211624. Verdict. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled action for our verdict, unanimously answer the questions submitted to us as follows. Question number 1. In regards to count 1 of the amended indictment, is Lori Vallow not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan and grand theft by deception? Answer, guilty. Question number 2. In regards to count 2 of the amended indictment, is Lori Vallow not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan? Answer, guilty. Question number 3. In regards to count 3 of the amended indictment, is Lori Vallow not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow and grand theft by deception? Answer, guilty. Question number 4. In regards to count 4, the amended indictment, is Lori Vallow not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow? Answer, guilty. Question number 5. In regards to count 5 of the amended indictment, is Lori Vallow not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tammy Daybell? Answer, guilty. Question number 6. In regards to count 7 of the amended indictment, is Lori Vallow not guilty or guilty of grand theft? Answer, guilty. Dated this 12th day of May, 2023, signed by the presiding officer.
All right, please be seated. Madam Clerk, thank you for reading the verdict into the record. At this time, let me just inquire of the jury, is this in fact your true and correct verdict?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Let me ask now from counsel, does the state wish to have the jury polled?
We do not, Your Honor.
Does the defense wish to have the jury polled?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, the jury will be polled at this time. Madam Clerk, if you would please indicate only by juror numbers of each of the jurors if this is their true and correct verdict individually.
Juror number 4, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror number 5, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 6, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 8, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 9, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 10, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 11, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 12, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 13, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 14, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 15, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 16, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The court does find it's a unanimous verdict in this case, so I will direct the clerk to record the verdict into the record of this case. I'll now have a closing jury instruction for our jurors and also those alternate jurors that are in attendance today. You have now completed your duties as jurors in this case and are discharged with the sincere thanks of this court. The question may arise as to whether you may discuss this case with the attorneys or with anyone else. For your guidance, the court instructs you that whether you talk to the attorneys or to anyone else is entirely your own decision. It is proper for you to discuss this case if you want to, but you are not required to do so, and you may choose not to discuss the case with anyone at all. If you choose to talk to someone about the case, you may tell them as much or little as you like about your deliberations or the facts that influenced your decision. If you decide to discuss the case with anyone, you should be careful to respect the privacy and feelings of your fellow jurors. You should limit your comments to your own perceptions and feelings. If anyone persists in discussing the case over your objections or becomes critical of your service either before or after any discussion has begun, please report that to me. At this time, then, the court offers its sincere thanks to the jurors. I appreciate your patience and attentiveness throughout this lengthy trial. I also thank you again for upholding your important civic duty as jurors in this case. I'd also like to thank the attorneys who tried this case for your professionalism throughout the proceedings and in the pretrial motions that came before trial. At this time, then, the court will discuss briefly sentencing in this case. In Idaho, pursuant to Title 19, Chapter 25, a report is required to be prepared before sentencing called a pre-sentence investigation report. In a typical case, that report takes at least 2 months to prepare. In a case such as this, it will likely take long.
You've been listening to a judge deliver a guilty verdict in the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell. The Idaho mother was charged with killing her 2 youngest children.
Vallow Daybell was also charged in connection to the death of her husband's first wife, Tammy Daybell, back in 2019. Jessica Levinson joined us now. She's a CBS News legal contributor and a professor at Loyola Law School. All right, Jessica, so before the verdict, when we spoke, you suggested that the fact that there was a quick decision on the part of this jury would seem to indicate, based on what we know of other cases, that things might be favorable, perhaps, for the prosecution. That certainly seems to be the case here. This guilty verdict was across the board.
It was a full sweep for the prosecution in this very sad case. And I think what we talked about before, which is a quick verdict, is typically good for the prosecution because it means that when the jurors walked back to the jury room, they already knew how they were going to vote. This was incredibly quick when we're thinking about a trial that took more than a month, when we had dozens of witnesses, so much evidence. I think what it indicates here is that the jury really believed the narrative from the prosecution, that there was motive here, there was the opportunity, and of course that Lori Vallow, in fact, did commit first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder for both of her children and, as you said, for her husband's first wife in this case.
And Jessica, prosecutors, we know they called nearly 60 witnesses to help frame their case. Did the fact that Lori Vallow Daybell refused to testify help or hurt her case?
So we'll never know. Now, of course, we only talk about the high-profile cases, but in the vast, vast majority of cases, that's exactly what happens, where a defendant does not testify. It's very risky for defendants to testify, and usually that risk is simply not worth it. I think in this case, the defense made a decision not to call any witnesses, not to put on any evidence, and not to call her to the witness stand. She obviously has some beliefs that are fringe, to say the least. And I think the defense made a calculation that it would not help their case. Now, of course, they lost, and so we'll never know what would have happened in an alternate universe when she was on the stand. But I think it was an entirely rational and reasonable decision not to put her on the stand in this case.
And our Chris Van Cleve, we should mention, was in the courtroom at the time of this verdict and reports back to us that obviously is a very emotional time, an emotional reaction from the family members that wanted to see justice for the deaths of these children. And I wonder about now Lori Vallow Daybell's husband, because Chad Daybell is being tried separately in connection to these cases. Now that her trial has concluded, do we have any sense of when his trial is slated to start and how it might be different from this one?
So I don't think we have the exact date that it is starting, but obviously this verdict doesn't do anything to help his chances, in the sense that the prosecution provided a theory of the case where, let's remember, in Idaho, aiding and abetting a murder is the same as actually pulling the trigger. So first-degree murder in Idaho can be actually committing the murder or telling somebody, encouraging somebody to commit the murder. The jury, let's remember, also found that Lori Vallow was guilty on the conspiracy charges. Who would she have been in a conspiracy with? Obviously, that would be Chad. And so I think his attorneys have to be looking at this particular verdict and feel pretty circumspect about it.
And I just wanted to follow up because remind us of the circumstances surrounding this. The defense essentially talked about sort of a religious aspect to what took place. Can you just explain a bit of that, Jessica? Because it could be we may be hearing that again in the trial yet to come.
Well, the defense argument here really was that Lori Vallow was a good mom, that she was a typical suburban, I think they said, yoga pants wearing mom. And then she met Chad Daybell, and she basically fell under the spell of his doomsday cult beliefs, and that he was the one to act in all of these cases. Now, of course, the jury didn't buy that, we know, but what we heard about and what we will continue to hear about in the next case involving Chad is this idea that they were members of a doomsday cult, that they believed that they would have followers who would eventually lead them to some sort of salvation. I think it's worth noting that we're not talking about mainstream beliefs by any stretch of the imagination. I believe there were text messages indicating that essentially they thought that the kids were zombies and or possessed, and that was part of the evidence that the prosecution used in this case.
And then also, Jessica, explain what happened with the Social Security payments on behalf of the children, because we know that that was part of this case as well.
Part of the case was dealing with motive, and the Social Security payments in part were that the children in this case, the two murdered children, were actually receiving benefits because their father had passed away. And so part of what happened here is the prosecution introduced evidence that Lori Vallow did not report her children missing, even though they were missing for a long period of time, and continued to collect those government benefits. That really cut against the defense argument here that she was otherwise a good mother.
And we should mention, we are getting a statement just in from the Madison County and Fremont County prosecuting attorneys, who say in a written statement, quote, "We are very pleased with the jury's verdict. We want to thank them as well as the alternates for their service over the last 6 weeks during this trial. Given the pending case against the co-defendant, we are unable to conduct any additional interviews or discuss further details of this matter. We want to assure each of you that we remain committed to pursuing justice for Tylee Ryan, J.J. Vallow, and Tammy Daybell. We also want to express sincere appreciation to the many members of law enforcement and the community who tirelessly worked together to hold Lori Vallow Daybell accountable."